Let's talk about the pendulum swing, which is the basis for the pendulum clean and the pendulum snatch in kettlebell sport. In kettlebell sport, everything is about endurance and obviously also strength because they're moving heavy weights. Endurance is all about lasting longer, making things easier. So the pendulum swing is about going with the movement. It's not about pulling the weight out. So in kettlebell training, freestyle, hardstyle, we use the swing for power. That means that we're inserting the weight and pulling it out powerful. Every time is a powerful rep with maximum effort. Of course, in freestyle, we also do swings, even hip hinge swings, which don't have to be for power, but can be for endurance. But for now, let's focus on the pendulum swing. Here's what happens in the pendulum swing. As we're at the top, the weight falls back, then I bend the knees, then the weight swings back, my knees extend. The knees extend because we want that weight to come up as high as possible at the back. The higher it comes up at the back, the more longer my path is going back up. So if it just comes here, the path is only this much right here. So we can't generate a lot of momentum, speed. If the bell is here and it starts falling down, it generates more speed. So the higher something is, think about a pendulum right here. It's hanging. So your shoulder here and you got the connection here to the weight and it's just swinging. The higher up it is, the faster it will go, the more momentum it will generate as it swings. Now, if it's just here, it's not going to generate a lot of momentum. So that is the point of extending the knees here, making space, letting that weight come up as high as possible. Then it falls back down and you don't want to pull it out. So normally, as that weight comes back down, we would pull it out by extending the hips right here. Pull it out and the arm disconnects. With the pendulum swing, we feel that it falls back and we move along. We bend the ankles. That brings the hips forward and keeps the arm connected to our body. We want that arm connected to the body. So again, here is an insert and a pull out and we're disconnecting. So that means that the legs are doing all the work pulling that weight out. Here, we're moving along with that weight. We might even be pushing a little bit, but not forcefully. Then, as we come to the extend here at the front, as I stand up, it's called an acceleration pull. That's what they've named it in sport, acceleration pull, right here. It is entered into a different part. It's pulled into a different part. So if I just let that pendulum move along, it's going to go here and there. But what I want is this arc right here, because the clean is up here in racking. The snatch is up here overhead, not out there. So when we're doing a hip hinge swing, we're going all the way out right there, but the pendulum swing is designed only for the clean and the snatch. The only reason why you would be training it is to improve your pendulum clean or your pendulum snatch. So it's very important to get this part right, and there's many different things that you can do. As we're at the back, following along, here, I can keep that arm straight, and then I can stand up. That's where the pull happens. I can stand up and bring the shoulder back more, lean back. That generates an additional pull. So just standing up generates a pull. It pulls it into a different part, up. Standing up and rotating at the spine adds an additional pull. So I can extend the spine, I can rotate the spine. Those are several things that I'm adding to add an additional pull. Now I can also lift the hip and rotate right here, the pelvis. I get even more range. So swing, acceleration pull. That weight now comes up. I stand up and I either clean if I'm doing a clean or I press out if I'm doing a snatch. So let's do this with a weight. So that is the basis for the pendulum clean and the pendulum snatch. Now, a couple of things to talk about in there is right here, this needs to work. Your scapula. Your scapula pulls the shoulder back and down. If that's not working, then your shoulder is forward and you run the risk of getting injured, but also you're not as strong. So scapula down and together. Then this arm can be straight here, as long as you're able to keep that weight close to you. If that arm bends, it's not bending because you're actually working your biceps. So you're not pulling the weight in with your biceps. That's something that you definitely do not want to do at all. Pulling it in with your biceps, that's going to lead to tendon issues. And that's not what's happening when you see my arm bend here. I'm not pulling it in with the biceps. As I'm here, that acceleration pull, how fast I do it, it's like a millisecond. It's extension of the hip and that pull that pulls that weight closer and up. So if I do it just a millisecond later, the weight could be here. If I do it here, then the weight will be here. To keep it here, as it goes up, I need to bend that arm. So I'm pulling that elbow back. So my point is, I am not pulling that weight close to me. If we're doing a hip hinge snatch, then maybe you've heard about the high pull. Now we're really pulling that elbow back, but that's not what happens here. Here I'm just moving the elbow back because that weight is here and I want to keep it there. If I'm going to push it out, then it's moving away from me. So again, the timing of the extension of the hip and the acceleration pull, at which point of the up phase that happens, determines how close that weight stays to you. Now, there are sports people who like to swing with a straight arm. They have to employ thoracic rotation and thoracic hyperextension and maybe even rotate the pelvis to keep that weight close. They can't keep that arm straight and just stand up straight. So you have to pair that with all these things. Otherwise, the other option is to keep the weight close, and that's done by that early acceleration pull right here. So if I pull here, then the weight is here. So I really want to hammer this in one more time. Backswing, extend, weight falls, arm stays connected, follow along, stand up, extend the hips, let the shoulder lead. Think about drawing a dot on your scapula. Think about that being pulled that way, right here. So as I come up, extend. If I extend here, then the weight will be here and I will have to bring that elbow in. If I extend later, that weight will be here. So that's the part that determines whether your elbow is bent and your arm comes in or you stay straight. And if you stay straight, you have to employ thoracic rotation or lean back. Analogy that I like to use for the swing is thinking about a fishing rod. If you have a fishing rod and it's a weak fishing rod, it's really weak, it's almost like rubber, and you're trying to pull something in, it's going to be hard. If you have a stiff fishing rod, it's going to be easier to reel something in. Now think about that fishing rod being your torso. Think about the reel as being your legs. Think about the line being your arm. Okay, if you're reeling in, that is your legs, right here. If your torso is weak, that is the rod, and you're trying to pull something up, it's going to be hard, and it might even turn into injury. If that rod is nice and firm, then it's easier to pull that line in right here. So this is the line, this is the rod, and this is your torso. It represents your torso, and the line represents your arm. If I focus on here and everything's strong here, it's going to be a lot easier to pull that line in. So right here. Think about it being a stiff rod. Think about your legs being the reel. Now, some of the things you don't want to do is turn a pendulum swing into like a power movement and really go and push. Push against that elbow, push against that weight. Sure, you can move along a bit, but not forcefully like you would with a hardstyle swing. With a hardstyle swing, you really go maximum power. If you're going to do the same with a pendulum swing, you might even hurt your elbow if you have the thumb pointing forward. So basically you're pushing against your elbow and the weight is here. Then you're either going to damage your elbow or your body automatically protects against that, against your elbow being damaged, and it starts tensing the elbow flexors, and then you're working against that. So you're pushing against that while you're employing elbow flexion, and that's going to lead to tendon issues. So several things with the pendulum swing can lead to tendon issues. Number one is the one I just said. Number two is you're actually curling the weight in, because that's what you see in the demo video. You see that weight coming in right here, but you're not recognizing that that's actually done by the acceleration pull and at what stage that is done of the upswing. And then you start pulling in because you want that weight to come in. And you keep doing that repetitively and maybe even with heavy weight, and your tendons and muscles are not conditioned for that. So it's repetitive, and you're at a stage where they're not ready for that. It's going to lead to inflammation. That's going to lead to tendonitis. So very important to look at that. Now, the opposite of what I just said is a hip hinge snatch. So anything that involves a hip hinge movement, can be hardstyle, freestyle, etc. With the hip hinge, we do want to pull that elbow back. So with a hip hinge, we are extending the hips, we're disconnecting right here. So there's no longer a push like in the pendulum, we're disconnecting. And now that analogy of the fishing rod really comes into play. So I'm pulling up the fishing rod right here. Now the weight is just going to go out. I have to pull it in, and that is done by bringing the elbow back, pulling your scapula together, and pressing out. Let's have a quick look at the difference between a pendulum swing and a hip hinge swing. So pendulum, hip hinge, the difference in breathing is with the pendulum, so as it goes down, I breathe out, push the air out. As it comes up, I push the air out, same thing. With the hip hinge, the hardstyle, we breathe in on the way down and push the air out on the way up, forcefully. Now, that's hardstyle and sport style. There are different ways to breathe in between that, as long as you're protecting your spine and you're actually breathing. So it's a good thing to breathe on every movement of the exercise. So for example, if you're doing a half snatch, you breathe out as you go up. You breathe out at the top if you're slowing your pace. You breathe out as you go down into racking. You breathe out as you go into backswing. Breathe out as you go back up into the snatch. If you're in racking and you're reducing your pace, which means you're going slower, then you might breathe 2 times. Maybe you're waiting longer, you breathe 3 times. And of course, there are other ways to breathe as well. The point is, breathe, keep breathing so that your heart rate doesn't go up too high and that your muscles get oxygen. Breathe correctly so that you're creating pressure on the inside and protect your spine. The grip for the pendulum is just a hook grip. Now you can employ that hook grip at the bottom, in one corner, in the middle, or at the top. It depends on what other things you also employ in your technique, in your style of snatching or cleaning. With a hard style, snatch or anything hard style, whether it's a clean, a swing or a snatch, you want to hold the handle in the middle so that everything is balanced because you're forcefully pulling it out. If you're working with the pendulum, you're not being forceful, like you're not working for maximal power. You're just generating enough force to get that weight up as high as it needs to be. So as you're working with hardstyle and maximal power, you want everything to be balanced. So holding the handle in one corner or the other corner is not balanced, and it's going to increase your effort and it will affect your grip. If you're using a pendulum and you're moving along and you're using your body weight as well to move that weight, then you can employ different grips. You might want to be close to where you're ending up with the hand. So we're always ending up with the hand at the top of the corner. So maybe you want to hold it there already. Maybe it works better for you that you hold it at the bottom so that your two strongest fingers are closer to the middle. So your index and your middle finger, they are your strongest fingers. So if you're going more to the bottom corner, then those two fingers will be closer to the middle. You can also close your grip with the thumb. So if you're gripping at the bottom corner, it means that as you're inserting, you're moving from the bottom to the top corner. As with anything in kettlebell training, you need to try it all out. You need to see what it does and then work with it for a while. Then create what works for you. Create your own style by piecing things together. Whether it's gripping at the top, at the bottom, whether you're employing thoracic rotation, leaning back, hip extension, bending the knees as well. All these things, try them out, piece them together, and develop your style which works the best for you.